Did you know sleep is one of the most overlooked components for improving your health? We spend about a third of our life sleeping, and unfortunately, we're not very good at it anymore. Different phases of motherhood affect sleep differently. Young mothers have consistently disrupted sleep as they take care of babies throughout the night. Moms of teenagers experience many late nights waiting up for kids to come home, and empty nester moms hit perimenopause and are constantly woken up with hot flashes or night sweats and other crazy symptoms that can really disrupt sleep. Basically, being a woman means you can get hit with anything throughout the entirety of your life when it comes to sleep. But not to fear. There's a lot we can do to influence the quality of our sleep and improve it so that way we can better show up to meet the demands of our day. In order to maximize our sleep, we actually need to understand what sleep is. Sleep is composed of two parts. First is your sleep drive, and the second is your sleep rhythm. Your sleep drive is basically as your body goes throughout the day, it creates a bunch of byproducts as the processes begin to work in our bodies. It builds up and cues our body that, hey, it's time to sleep so we can clear it all out. And that's really what initiates us to be able to fall asleep. One of the major byproducts that really is that signaling molecule to the brain is called adenosine. And that is what builds up in the brain and says, time to go to sleep. We're ready now. So you may be asking, why is this not a medication that's given to people all the time? And it's because adenosine doesn't actually cross the blood-brain barrier. So you can't take it orally or have it injected and have it get into your brain. It can only get there when the body puts it there naturally. So that's why you can't buy it over the counter as a sleep medication. So you may really notice this when you have had a long, exhausting day working outside or moving, for example. Days where it's just go, 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 you're working really hard and you get to 5 p.m. and you're like, I am ready to go to bed for the day. That is the kind of thing that we're talking about. The other component to sleep is our sleep rhythm. And this sleep rhythm or circadian rhythm is what most people know it as. This is what tells us when to sleep. It tells us a lot of other things as well, but primarily for the purposes of this video, we're just going to be focusing on that circadian rhythm telling our bodies, hey, it's time to go to bed. Now, this internal clock dictates our wake up time and our go to bed time. It tells us when we want to be up and at 'em and when we want to fall asleep. And if you have been alive for any period of time, you know that everybody is a little bit different. You have people who are the early birds, you have the night owls, you have people who really follow the sun up, sun down, and then you have people who just really don't seem to follow any sort of internal clock at all. And sleep can be really, really sporadic and difficult to nail down to a particular time of day. One of the challenges in our day with this natural rhythm that we have is screens and lights. So at night, we can stay up all hours of the night with different technologies that can interfere with our body's natural rhythms because of the signaling that's impaired when we have bright light all the time as opposed to just during daylight hours. Now, when it comes to us actually being asleep, I'm going to segregate, for simplicity's sake, sleep into two halves. The first half of your night is when your body is going to be focusing primarily on restoring the physical body. It's going to be working to improve muscles and work through pretty much anything that has to do with the body resetting itself physically is what's happening during that first half of sleep. The second half of sleep, on the other hand, is characterized by more frequent periods of REM sleep. And during this time, the body is going through a lot of mental and emotional processing. So one of the things that we know happens primarily during this time is memory consolidation. So whether you've been working on remembering a new skill or if you're going back to school and you're studying for something, your body will then remember it best once it's had that sleep time to consolidate that memory and put it in your long-term. Now, when we look at both of these components of sleep, the sleep drive and sleep rhythm, the ideal happens when our sleep drive builds and builds and builds, and it gets to its maximum when our body wants to go to bed naturally. That is what we're trying to do. So as we're thinking about improving sleep, understanding these two fundamental components of what makes sleep actually happen can really give us some indicators of where we can improve our routines and practices so that way we can line up the timing and that drive so that we can go to bed when our body wants to go to bed and know that we can get the best night's sleep possible. Now, when we're trying to improve our sleep, there is so many different avenues we can look to actually accomplish that goal, and it's going to be different for everybody. So I'm going to give you a bunch of different suggestions and ideas to look into so that way you can figure out what you personally need to improve your sleep. Sleep hygiene is a really popular word and phrase right now, and what that means is it's ensuring that you are taking measures to prepare your body and your mind for bed. That's what sleep hygiene is. So a lot of the things that we talk about with sleep hygiene are going to be surrounding blue light, because we know that having lots of blue light can decrease our melatonin production, the sleep regulator for that circadian rhythm. When we don't make enough of it, it doesn't cue our body, hey, it's time to go to bed. So a great way to make sure that blue light is not interfering with our body's natural melatonin production is by reducing blue light. So stopping any screens an hour before bed, dimming the lights, making sure you've got a bit of a softer lighting can really be helpful so that your body can naturally produce the hormones it needs to get you ready for bed. Another thing that can be really, really helpful is learning to calm your body and your mind intentionally during bedtime so that way your body's ready to go to sleep. So we talked about in the stress video switching from the sympathetic nervous system activation to parasympathetic nervous system activation. And that is really going to be something that will affect how well we fall asleep and stay asleep by promoting to our body and our mind that it is okay to go to sleep. It is safe. Our body can then more easily shift into sleep. And you can watch that video to find out how to do that. But one thing I think works really great for me personally before bed is deep breathing exercises. That is just a great way to just settle the body and your mind. Another consideration with sleep hygiene is not eating too close to bedtime. Your body will be more focused on digesting food if you eat too close to bedtime than actually restoring the body to the state that it wants to be to wake up refreshed for the next day. The exception to this is breastfeeding mamas. Man, are we just ravenous or what? I mean, I think it's crazy just how it's bedtime, 11 p.m. comes around and it's like, I need to eat my whole pantry right now. So what do? We do. And that's because we have an increase in prolactin in the evening. And when we have that increase in prolactin, that means we're going to be having an increase in breast milk production. Any of you mamas know that that is so true. When we get that ravenous late night urge to go snack, it's because our body's ramping up for the milk production that it's going to be going through during the night. And that's totally fine because you want to be eating enough to support breast milk when you are lactating. Another thing that is really helpful with sleep hygiene for a lot of people is keeping the room as cool as possible. I live in Texas where it is hotter than Hades in the summer, and I can tell you that keeping my house at 68 degrees is not going to be happening because that is so expensive. So even if you can't keep your temperature at that range, having a fan going, making sure that you have not synthetic sheets, that way you're having more breathable fabrics, that way you're not trapping heat in. Different things like that can be really helpful for keeping it lower. And the last thing I want to mention with this is consistent bedtime and wake up times. Making sure that you're actually giving your body a chance to work on a set schedule will really help your body get into that rhythm so it naturally wants to wake up at the same time every day. One skill that can be really helpful with sleep hygiene is something called habit stacking. So when you create a bedtime routine, it's going to be filled with different elements that are going to help support you to get you ready for bed. But let's say you hear about something and you're like, oh, I really want to try and incorporate that into my sleep routine. Or maybe I just said something that you were like, oh, I don't do that, but I could definitely try that. How can you incorporate it into your actual daily practice so that you can add that to your toolbox for improving your sleep? The way it works is you have something set, you have a habit of sorts, and you just tack on something to the beginning of it or the end of it or in the middle of it, and you keep it in between something you're already used to doing. And that way, as you're going through it, it's very easy to slip it in there and make sure it happens. So for example, let's say you are trying to do a little bit more self-care at night before bed, but you always go to the bathroom before bed. So maybe what you do is right after you go to the bathroom, you are going to wash your face immediately after, because you're going to be washing your hands so then you can wash your face immediately after, right? If that's something that you're already doing, adding that step in is just super easy, and you're always going to go to the bathroom before bed, so it's not difficult to be consistent with that. So that's a great way to incorporate sleep hygiene tips and tricks to improve your sleep. The next thing I want to talk about really quickly, when we talk about sleep, one of the first things that people want to do is do some sort of sleep supplement or medication. And I am not going to touch on a lot of that, but what I will say is if you're going through pregnancy or perimenopause, you are more likely to experience restless leg syndrome or muscle cramps in the night. And so if you notice that you are experiencing that, one of the best things that you can do is supplement with magnesium. And that can be a great way to support your body's need for increased nutrition. I have found in my pregnancies that as soon as I start taking magnesium, I don't have restless leg and I don't have muscle cramps waking me up in the middle of the night. It is life-changing. So that is the one supplement that I think is really helpful for women specifically, because these changes in hormones just make us way more likely to experience leg cramps and restless leg syndrome. The last thing I'm going to touch on is sleep disorders, because if you have an undiagnosed sleep disorder, you haven't got a prayer. You really have to make sure that you are getting the support that you need if you have a sleep disorder, because nothing is going to out supplement, or you can't out exercise or out diet your sleep disorders. And honestly, if you have a sleep disorder, everything else really isn't that important until you take care of the sleep disorder. You won't have any chance of losing weight or getting into better shape or feeling better. And the reason is because sleep is so important. It is so important to helping our bodies function properly. And so if you are noticing I'm exhausted all the time, even though I've slept a full 8 hours, so to speak, there's just some different symptoms that can be really, really helpful to be aware of, because it could mean that you have an undiagnosed sleep disorder. The first disorder is insomnia. This is the most common sleep disorder. It's difficulty falling asleep, staying asleep, or maybe you wake up in the early morning and you can't fall back to sleep. That is the criteria for insomnia. And this can be acute, where it lasts for a little while, or it can be chronic if it lasts for more than 3 months. Now, the treatment really depends on what's causing the insomnia. And so again, there's a lot of different angles to go about it, depending on what's going on. But generally, they find that cognitive behavioral therapy can be extremely helpful for treating insomnia. You can also do light therapy. So like we talked about, making sure that you're not having too much blue light at night, making sure that you get light first thing in the morning, especially if you can get outside first thing in the morning. That just signals to your body it's wake up time. And so really trying to regulate that circadian rhythm could be a component that influences your insomnia. And exercise can have a mild effect. For some people, it's going to work better than others, but exercising on a regular basis has been shown to improve sleep in most people. And so that could be a thing to incorporate into your toolbox to improve your sleep as well. But like I said, it really depends on what the cause of the insomnia is, and that's going to be very, very different for everybody. So working with your physician and or a therapist can be really, really helpful to finding things to help support your sleep in that. It could also be a nutrient deficiency, and so some sort of supplementation could also be beneficial with that. The last sleep disorder I'm going to mention is sleep apnea. If you have it, welcome to the club. Sleep apnea is when you have difficulty breathing during sleep. And if you have difficulty breathing, nothing else is important. Your body is constantly just going to be fighting for survival every single night. So if you find that you are just exhausted all of the time and you're falling asleep in crazy places, or you just never feel like you're rested enough, then maybe you have sleep apnea. And what's crazy is that if you are postmenopausal, you are 2 to 3 times more likely to have sleep apnea than you were during perimenopause. So for all of you who are in the menopause season of your life, this could be especially helpful for you. It also, during pregnancy, women, as they gain more weight, it can affect your ability to breathe while you sleep. So many women develop sleep apnea during pregnancy. There's so many different things that could be causing it. Hormones can play a role in it, but there's also physically likely your body just may not be able to breathe or your airway collapses while you're sleeping. There are several treatment options for this. The most common would be using a CPAP machine, and that basically you wear a mask to bed, super cute. It helps you breathe. It just pushes air into your lungs throughout the night, so that way you will always make sure that you're getting air into your body. It's incredibly annoying for sure, but man, it's absolutely life-changing. They have created some other treatment options that are relatively new that are implants that you can have implanted into you to help regulate your breathing, or surgical options can also be evaluated if the cause is something that is anatomical. All of those things can be really important to helping you improve your sleep. There's so many components that go into quality sleep, and making sure you understand your specific situation and what you can do to improve your sleep is life-changing. I can speak from my own experience that getting my sleep into a good spot has transformed my life so much. I don't even know how I could possibly be a good mom without sleeping, and I attribute all that to my CPAP personally, but there are so many different things that will be game changers if you can figure out just that right blend for you to improve your quality of sleep. So hopefully some of the things in this video helped you get a better idea of why sleep is so important, how you can actually impact your sleep, and give you some ideas to try so that you can be sleeping so much better. Stay tuned for next week's video. We're going to be diving into nutrition, and I'm so excited to share a bunch of different fun things to help you improve your health with nutrition. Thanks for watching.